But we also need to understand that you are not going to build strategy and you're not going to build your roadmap every day, right? So that is one aspect where most of product managers somewhat get too passionate about building roadmap, building strategy. That is one aspect, but that's not something which they'll do on a day-to-day basis. Can somebody tell me how to cultivate empathy and how to have that empathy in everything that I do? No.
Is there significant difference between B2B and B2C product management?
B2B is a different beast altogether, mainly because of the nature of users and buying process. And obviously, as product managers, we need to adopt somewhat different strategies. So I feel if I am a product manager and if I am getting these 3-4 things, I'll be very satisfied, because this is what about good culture is. Planets, right? Whenever we talk about solar system and planets, we always think about scientists, astrophysicists thinking and finding those planets. I don't know how many of you know that the last 3 planets, which are the last 3, including Pluto, but again, the last 3 were discovered by not scientists. They were discovered by a musician, a mathematician, and a farmer. Because so and this was something really cool. So if these people can find planets, we are talking about how can you improve your customer's journey, how can you improve some workflow. So you have to prove yourself, you have to build that credibility.
So I think, Sushant, even before we start, right, let me give you a synopsis of how the structure of the session is.
Sure.
What we typically do is, I'll do a small introduction, right? And keep the conversation very free-flowing, very formal.
Sure.
We try to answer as many questions which are relevant to the audience, right? Regarding their general principles in life, culture, and things like that, right? And then after the 30, 35 odd minutes, I'll start bringing people on the spotlight, and they will essentially start asking you questions, right? Regarding generally about your career. And the session will typically end by 9, 10, maybe 10 minutes. Upar rahega ho. That's it. And towards the end of the session, we take a group photograph, which essentially kind of commemorates the entire thing that happens. Okay. So, yeah, Atharv and Mayank, please, when people start joining in, you can start adding in the interest of time. I'll quickly start. So I think first and foremost, thank you very much, Sushant, for taking out the time.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. It's pleasure being part of this group, this community, and it's always pleasure talking to you, Shravan. So I'm looking forward to this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I'll do a quick introduction, guys. I think Sushant is someone who typically needs no introduction from my, but I'll still try to do a poor job at it. Right? Let me do that. So it's an absolute pleasure to introduce an outstanding leader in product management, Sushant Mathur. With an illustrious career spanning over 13 years, especially at Sabre India, he has established himself a visionary product management leader, currently serving as the Director of Product Management at Sabre. He leads transformative efforts, crafting strategic product roadmaps and operational plans, while ensuring alignment for both business and internal needs, and making great scalable enterprise products for Sabre, for the clients that they essentially hold across. Before becoming a director of product management, Sushant also served as a manager of product management and a manager of software development at Sabre. His multifaceted approach to leadership, combining his technical roots and deep understanding of business and consumer needs, allows him to manage complex product life cycles seamlessly. Sushant's journey started as a software engineer at Ocwen Financial Services, where he honed his technical skills before transitioning into more business-oriented roles at companies like Commerce Velocity and Oracle. His foundational expertise paired with the solid education from prestigious institution like IIM Lucknow has empowered him to become a respected leader and somebody who has innovated all across his career. Beyond his professional work, he has been an active mentor for aspiring product managers, sharing his wisdom with students at the XLRI, where we met, and the University of British Columbia. His dedication to fostering the next generation of product leaders speaks volumes. Thank you, Sushant, for joining us today. I'm pretty sure this will be an insane and amazing session that we'll do together. And there's a lots to learn from your experience and how we essentially build products over time. So thank you very much once again for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction. I'm not used to hearing so many good things about me. So yes, it was it was really good to hear all of it.
Makes sense. So straight to the gesture. Like the first thing that I want to ask you, even before we talk about principles and everything, right? There is one question that typically people keep asking me, and it is across groups. It's not just at an entry level, but rather at all levels, right? Is there significant difference between B2B and B2C product management, right? And how do people really look at it? Because when you're dealing with enterprise client, huge clients, right, with large workforces, how is it any different from B2C product management?
Sure.
Or are the principles similar, or there is a stark difference and people have to take completely different routes to excel at? Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Perfect.
Janta, please, I would recommend, please be on mute. I'm putting everyone, apologies for that. Yes, please. आप अपने आप को unmute कर लो. Yes.
Sure. Perfect. Again, great question. Great question to start with B2C, B2B, because when we talk about B2B and B2C, obviously those core principles don't change. However, when we see B2B and B2C, they are quite different. B2B is a different beast altogether, mainly because of the nature of users and buying process. And obviously, as product managers, we need to adopt somewhat different strategies. Because when we talk about B2C, our focus is typically on individual users, right? So users and their success is driven by three things mainly when we talk about B2C. One is user experience, second is ease of use, and third is emotional connection. Because when you are building anything for B2C, your users should have that emotional connection with your product. So these are three things that we mainly consider in B2C. So for example, when I work with our point of sale applications, because Sabre is a travel marketplace. So we have a lot of point of sale applications. We have our own point of sale with more than 400K users who use our application. And then we have a lot of B2, B2C kind of customers. They have thousands of users who use their solutions. Now, what we do is here, our focus is mainly on simplicity. How can we make sure that the entire travel shopping, travel booking, and post booking flow is intuitive? It has to be frictionless. So as a product manager, when I'm looking at B2C, obviously my core principles remain the same, but my focus areas change a bit. So here I'm focusing more on how can I make the entire experience intuitive, frictionless, because users are like individuals like all of us. We are making personal travel decisions. Every click matters. You have to be very clear in terms of how are you going to measure success of anything that you are going to do. Running those A/B tests, optimizing those conversion rates, even before a smallest change in design or your user journey, you have to be very, very careful about it. So B2C product management, it requires rapid iterations. You need to have deep understanding of your users' behavior. If there is a seasonality, how consumers' preferences change. Preferences can change very quickly. Then we also need to focus a lot on speed, agility, because you are dealing with large number of users who expect, as I said, seamless interaction and instant result. So this is what B2C is all about. Same core principles, but again, your focus areas change. Now, when we talk about B2B product management in general, here you're not really focusing on speed and agility, to be honest. You have lengthy buying process. You have process where you need to understand what my biggest corporate customer needs. You have to understand the business. You have to understand that decision making in B2B is very complex. There will be multiple stakeholders. So for example, in my role in my product area, when I talk about those large corporates, even if we are doing anything which is very small, we need to now look at who is involved. You have your consumers on one side, then you have your suppliers on another side, then you have your own internal team, different product areas. So now suddenly from individual user in B2C, you are now dealing with lot of large customers, internal, external. Then these stakeholders will definitely have conflicting priorities, conflicting needs. Sales cycle is much longer. Sometimes you have to spend months and months to convince a user that your product is probably the best product out there in B2B. So B2B products, you have to be highly customizable. You have to make sure it's flexible to fit into existing workflows. B2B is not just about one person using your product. There will be a lot of upstream, downstream, their own external in-house tools probably. So you have to make sure how can your offering fit into all these existing workflows, existing systems. Then other common challenge with B2B is that you have to also build solutions by considering variety of other systems. A lot of these large corporates, they have their own policies, they have their own guidelines. All large corporates, even if they are in the same industry, they have their own way of working. So what happens in B2B is we are not just selling the product, we are selling a solution that should fit into a company's long-term vision. They are going to spend, let's say, 10, 15 years with you. Enterprise deals are generally long term. So how can you build a solution, or how can you sell a solution that fits into a company's long term vision, which means the stake is higher, there is less room for quick pivots. You can't just quickly pivot like how you can do in B2C. Another challenge in B2B is that yes, user experience is important, but in a slightly different way. So your primary users aren't just your end users. They are also business buyers who care about ROI, who care about reliability. Suddenly scalability becomes a big thing, which is probably not the case when you are building something for B2C, at least unless you are Netflix or Amazon. You don't really care about scalability in the beginning. So whenever I work with my team and my product managers for B2B, our biggest challenge is making sure we are providing everything that the large corporate needs. Even if we are building that interface, it should have all the relevant data while not overwhelming the user with too much information. But you have to find this delicate balance between feature rich product, which is user friendly, meeting all those compliance and governance. So in short, the key differences between B2B and B2C product management: B2C, we focus on rapid iterations, A/B testing, driving user engagement on a large scale, whereas in B2B, you have to navigate these complex decision-making process. You have to focus on long sales cycle, customization need, understanding secondary users, balancing the goals of multiple stakeholders. So in B2B, you have to be a bit more patient. You need to adopt a long-term strategic thinking, and obviously a deeper focus on relationship management.
I think very, very interesting answer. And it kind of talked about a lot of the high level structures that you think in B2B. But I want to kind of delve down on one point.
Sure.
Like you said, that most of the decisions are like complex in nature, and they are
Mhm.
long decisions, because it might have to sit with very well with the vision of your client who is
Yep.
essentially want to. Now, the scope for failure is also then very, very different than B2C, right?
Yep.
Can
Yep.
fail in B2C, a button might not work, or maybe something on the landing page broke. You can always fix it. But
Yep.
doing a large release where you're changing the backend systems of a large client and then it fails, how do you essentially navigate that? That the room for
Yeah.
failure is so less, right?
Hmm.
How do you do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And for example, when we talk about travel, anything that we do in travel is somewhat mission critical. Imagine you are at the airport and suddenly you are not able to check in. Uh, Entire system will collapse, and we have seen it. We have seen those long queues at the airport. So somewhat is mission critical. Assume you are at the hotel's reception and they are not giving you your room key, and it's almost 30-40 minutes. Imagine how much bad experience is going to be for you. So yes, somewhat travel is mission critical, and that's why what we need to do is in B2B product management, first is you have to be very clear about not just the domain but also your client's internal processes. You have to understand everything end to end, because it's not just about your functionality, your module. Obviously your customer is going to use what you are going to offer to them, but then as I said, you have to see what other players are involved in this entire value stream cycle for that customer. You have to understand what can go wrong. It means you have to literally understand those processes by doing that shadowing. You have to understand all the upstream downstream systems which can break anything. So you have to not just spend time on primary research, which is generally your main focus area in B2C. Here you need to do a lot of secondary research. You need to understand everything end to end, because anything that you do can break anything else,
Yeah.
and then anything else, and then entire system will collapse on your customer side. So one is lot of secondary research is needed so that you are at least clear on all these unknown or unknown unknowns. And then once you are clear on that end-to-end process and you understand the domain, then probably if something goes wrong, you need to be very clear in terms of how fast your time to recovery is. So for example, Google has this DevOps playbook. They have what is your time to recovery. So they call it MTTR. So those are certain metrics where as product managers, you need to be somewhat involved in this entire product ops cycle to see even if something goes wrong, and things go wrong. things will go wrong, no matter how much strong your research is, how much strong your product development process is. So then you need to understand if something goes wrong, how fast I can recover, what checks and measures I can put in my product to make sure it is scalable, but it can also recover soon, it can recover fast. And then even if something goes wrong, how quickly we can provide some kind of support, some kind of alternate or workarounds to customers. So that's why in B2B product management, you have to be more hands-on. You have to be more involved on somewhat ops and technical side of your product so that you can answer clearly to your customer when things are not going your way.
Makes sense. And from taking from this cue only, I want to ask two very interesting questions. One is that when you hire for your team, right?
Mhm.
Do you look for very slightly different skill sets in the PMs than generally I would do for a company like Flipkart or maybe
Mhm.
Amazon? That's one.
Yeah.
And the second thing coming from the same question, the B part of this is that what are the general principles or what is that archetype of a great PM? Right, that you say this person has the ability to become like a great PM and it is
Sure.
available in his behaviors. I want to talk
Mhm.
about those principles a bit, which you have seen over the long career that you've had. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so obviously, every company has some specific requirements. For example, in my case, whenever I have to hire someone, I look for two things. Obviously, that person should have good business acumen, understanding product, understanding strategy. But we also need to understand that you're not going to build strategy and you're not going to build your roadmap every day,
Hmm.
right? So that is one aspect where most of product managers somewhat get too passionate about building roadmap, building strategy. That is one aspect, but that's not something which they'll do on a day-to-day basis. So on day-to-day basis, what we are going to do? You have to be very smart in terms of execution. How can you execute things? How can you execute things fast? That is something which I really understand. And I try to ask questions around execution a lot because domain knowledge will take months, years. But execution requires certain principles. For example, if you want to execute something, you need to be very clear in terms of what are you going to do and how are you going to deliver what is expected from you. And do you have this ability to understand everything? So when you want to be a good executor, you will have good clarity. You will obviously have a structured way of thinking about certain things, and you will ask the right questions. So as long as you are able to do all of this, I feel that person has all the right credentials because I can't judge anybody based on domain because even when I joined Sabre, to be honest, I did not know the full form of PNR, right? Because there was no need for me to know what is the full form of PNR. Now I know. But when I joined Sabre, nobody asked me that, tell me the full form of PNR, because that is very specific question related to travel. So those things I believe person can learn. But these are those core things that I always look for
Does
whenever I
that
have
does
to
that
hire.
mean does that mean that you also hire PMs from generally very diverse domains?
Mhm.
What I mean by that is this a requirement that you generally see that if somebody is from the travel and B2B domain, maybe
Yeah.
somebody coming from an Airbnb building internal systems, that would be a better fit versus someone who is probably coming from a fintech domain and but has very sound principles, right?
Mhm.
Would those be kind of similar candidates for you, right? In that perspective? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I look for top 1% operator.
That's
So
super
no,
cool.
I agree. I don't really personally think too much about domain because I know if you have the right skill set and right understanding in terms of what you want to do, you can definitely learn the domain. And learning domain takes time. So we can't really judge or hire a person based on domain understanding. So I am always okay. Obviously, we like if somebody has that required domain, but for me it doesn't matter. I have seen a lot of product managers, and one very personal example, one of my product managers who is still part of my team, he had very different background. He did his hospitality management, then he worked with hotels, then he would work with a couple of typical hospitality kind of companies where he was taking care of everything which is non-tech. He joined Sabre, he was part of our help desk, and then eventually he wanted to become product manager and no tech background. But sound guy. He was very well appreciated in terms of his effort, in terms of his acumen to do and go always above and beyond. He's part of a team and he's one of our rock stars. And he takes care of a lot of technical things which he learned on his own. So if you have right skill set, as you always say, and if you have right way of doing things, I think you can learn and you can deliver
Yes.
anywhere.
Why do I do this is because for a lot of times they don't listen to me and I call my friends and just break those biases that
Sure.
anybody can move from anywhere, right?
Yes.
It was just kind of a validation question, but
Mhm.
so amazed that you kind of, but now I want to move to a slightly deeper part of
Mhm.
conversation.
Sure.
Understand that what is truly product culture, right? And more importantly, I want to talk about what is culture and how does it play a role in the growth of a team and then retrospectively the growth of a product manager, right? How do you define that as a product leader? What is good culture where people thrive? And how do you define that? And what is the impact of that in the growth and innovation of probably any organization that
Sure.
essentially wants to scale and become better at it? Yeah.
Yes. Culture, again, culture has several different aspects, but first let's talk about what is a good team culture, and then we'll talk about innovation as part of it. So when we talk about a good culture, and we'll talk about, let's say, a product team or product team members, good culture is where, in my opinion, where we have product managers who have full authority, full autonomy to decide what they want to do or what they don't want to do. So that is one. You should have the freedom to decide what do you think is good for your product, for your area, for your customer. So that is one thing which is very, very important, at least in product management kind of role, probably not for others. But so one is product managers should have full autonomy to decide what they want to do. Second is they should also have full freedom to run experiments in terms of whatever ideas they have. They should have full freedom, unless it's a highly regulated industry or domain. That's a different thing. But in general, you should have the ability to run experiments, identify whether you have all your assumptions clearly validated, or whatever hypothesis you have, and then how fast you can understand and discover potential opportunities. So I feel if I am a product manager and if I am getting these three, four things, I'll be very satisfied, because this is what about good culture is. Good culture is where you get good work, where you have some of these things where you can run experiments, you can prove your potential, and then obviously growth is a byproduct, or whatever you call it. So good culture, in my opinion, provides all these environments and things to product managers.
But
Now,
it
yes.
seems one thing that just wanted to
Sure.
cut there was that, but it seems quite counterintuitive. I'll tell you why. Because
Yes.
at least in small settings, the room to experiment is way higher. Where
Mhm.
when there are enterprise clients, right, who
Yes.
have a certain thought process, who had, and lot of students of mine across years, like 10 years, 15 years, they say that I am in a product role, but I
Mhm.
don't know anything of the product role that essentially, because
Yeah.
whatever is coming from the top is what I'm implementing. There is no room. How does that
Yes.
happen in or in a large organization like Sabre?
Yes.
Is it like team level, or is it
Mhm.
really it comes to boils down from how the organization thinks about innovation in general? Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's a great question. And I see that wherever we say that, oh, I'm not finding opportunities to innovate, or innovation is always top down, not bottoms up. What I feel is that it's always very two-way kind of lane. Yes, there are certain things where people will suggest you, your leadership will tell you that, hey, this is how you should do. But it's also individual's responsibility to say that, oh, I want to do things differently. So one is, I expect that every product managers, irrespective of your industry, I look for maybe two things, or we can say maybe two E's, right? So one is obviously explore. You have to explore things on your own. You have to have that explorer's mindset, where you are going and you are finding solutions, ideas on your own, and you don't need to be Elon Musk thinking very big ideas. So no, even small improvements, even something which you feel will probably just have 1% suggestions, improvements in your customer's life, that's good enough. So one is innovation, or anything that we want to do can be very small incremental process improvement or process change. That's absolutely fine. So it's not always large innovations, because only when you have your own innovation idea backlog and you build it consistently, then only you can prove that you are ready for it. Because everybody wants to do cool stuff, but you have to prove yourself again and again and again. And I'll also share one personal example later. So one is you have to have that explorer's mindset. And another interesting thing that I was reading in my son's book, that large the planets, right? Whenever we talk about solar system and planets, we always think about scientists, astrophysicists thinking and finding those planets. I don't know how many of you know that the last three planets, which are the last three, including Pluto, but again, the last three were discovered by not scientists. They were discovered by a musician, a mathematician, and a farmer.
Wow.
Because yeah, so and this is was something really cool. So if these people can find planets, we are talking about how can you improve your customer's journey, how can you improve some workflow. So you have to prove yourself, you have to build that credibility. So build your own backlog, find every opportunity to sell or at least talk about those ideas. And believe me, irrespective of which company or what kind of leadership is there, people will start listening you, people will start appreciating your ideas because you are doing it consistently and you are doing it again and again. So first is you have to have that explorer's mindset. Second thing, again, I'll repeat myself here, can you also execute? So having great ideas is good, but when I say execution, nobody is expecting you to build a full-fledged solution based on your idea. Build a small wireframe. Today's time, you have so many tools. You don't need to do anything. There are so many no code tools. Build a working solution, working prototype. Prove that that idea can work, even if it is a very small, crappy kind of work wireframe. That's absolutely fine. But you need to really focus on execution as well, because then you are not just somebody who is coming up with ideas. You are also proving it again and again. So it has to be mutual. You have to demonstrate some of these skills. Then only you'll find those opportunities in a large setting where people will say, okay, Sushant, show us what you wanted to build for this customer, or tell us what do you think we should do differently for our customer. So it has to be mutual. It has to be two-way. It has to be kind of that kind of environment.
Such an interesting thing to say, that have your innovation backlog. That's such an
Yes.
amazing word to use, right? But
Yes.
I think there is this very famous quote which Marcus Aurelius wrote, let's say, long
Uh,
back. He says, learn to sell, learn to build, and you have a separate life and you have a great life. So these two skill sets are really
yes.
so very, very impressed by the fact that we talked about the explorers, the growth mindset that typically happens.
Mhm.
I want to talk about one more thing besides this, right?
Sure.
Which is very interesting, that can you also break down the complexity that happens at different levels of product management? Like
Uh,
what happens at a PM level? What happens at an SPM level? What do you expect? What happens at a
sure.
GPM level? And what happens probably at a director and then CPO level? How does
Yes.
the structure of responsibilities and the structure of deliverance of execution change across these levels?
Mhm. Sure. Yes. Another great question and quite thought-provoking as well. So, what I generally say is that if you think in your career when you grow, so there are two things that you should always consider. So let's assume there are two circles. I remember reading it somewhere, but I don't know where. So there are two things in your career. One is your area of concern, and then your area of influence, right? So imagine if your area of concern is this big, your area of influence can be a smaller piece, but then eventually it grows. And similarly, your area of concern also grows. So now if I am individual product manager, obviously I am part of a team, I am part of a product portfolio which is pretty large. So that is my area of concern, because I work for that product line, I work for that line of business. But my area of influence can be very small. Now, how small it can be, it depends. But let's say I am only responsible for a module. I am only responsible for one part of that module. Or let's say I'm only responsible for one specific feature or initiative. So that's one thing. So what I'll have to do is, obviously I'll just focus on that feature. I'll just make sure that whatever I'm building in that feature aligns with my overall product or portfolio level goals and objectives. And then I'll just continue building and moving and tracking my North Star metrics, so on and so forth. Now, what happens is after a few years, if you grow, as I said, your area of influence will increase, and similarly, your area of concern will also increase. So now, next level, you are not just thinking about that product feature. You're not thinking about how this product module will work very well with other modules. Then you start interacting with other product managers in your company. Then you start interacting with a lot of other business leaders in your company, because now you are not just building one feature, you are focusing on that module, and you start getting involved more and more on upstream, downstream, how you can do company level or org level planning, scheduling. You'll also start getting more and more involved in go to market. How will you market that product, market that module? Once you become, let's say, director of product, then, as I said, your area of concern and area of influence will be very, very big. So you have to do too many things. Suddenly now you're not just focusing on build and execute. You are focusing on how much money do you need? How are you going to use that money? How are you going to work with your marketing to position your product? How that messaging will look like? How will you price your product? They expect you. So in product led growth, they expect you to tell how much we should charge, how should we sell this product, to whom, and what should be our sales frequency or other frequency. So you have to now suddenly focus more on not just build and execute, but other things. If you are building a global product, suddenly now you are dealing with a lot of additional region specific, country specific guidelines, compliance, so on and so forth. So now you have to also understand things. You also have to work with variety of stakeholders. And now if you grow and again, let's say become VP of product, then again, your role and responsibility will be way more complex. Now, suddenly you are responsible for that P&L. You you are not managing that product. You are now looking at P&L. You have to make sure that your org is focused on delivering on all those KPIs. If you don't meet those KPIs, what will happen? What should be those KPIs? You have to negotiate with your sales. You have to negotiate with your sales leaders, with your customers. So as I said, as you grow, your area of concern, area of influence will continue to grow, which is a good thing. But then you also need to learn a lot of things beyond build and execution, like, as I said, go to market, sales, positioning, pricing, your KPI setting, OKRs, and all of this.
Makes sense. I think one of the things that I really want to ask, and it's such a nice example to say area of concern and area of influence. The thing that I want to ask you is from this perspective that there is now the advent of AI, right? And everybody is looking forward that it changes the PM landscape, right? And there was this very famous quote by the CEO of Intercom. He said, AGI is the death of SaaS. Artificial general intelligence is up. Whether we agree with it or disagree with it, the question that I want to ask is it really overhyped? Does it help? Right? Is this AI coming in and saying that it take the jobs of product manager? Does it really aid? Is it like a co-pilot, as people say it? It helps you become better PMs? Or can I expect like maybe 7 years down the line, the PRDs, the strategic decisions we are making, there's some bot who is doing that, right? What is your perspective on it? Yeah.
Yes. Again, great question. And as you said, everybody has similar kind of questions, and which happens with every new technology. Every time something new comes, people will start thinking, "Oh, what's going to happen?" Because one, you don't even know, and that's where I think as a product manager, I don't really think much will change, and I'll tell you why and in what context. Anything that we do, whether you are even building software for robots, you need something which obviously machines cannot have. And that is probably one of the most commonly used words in product management. I don't know if anybody can guess. I'm talking about word that starts with E and everybody talks about it. Can someone guess? Anybody? Any thoughts?
They're writing it on the chat. They're writing
Yes,
it.
exactly, right? So as Mamta said, so empathy, right? Empathy is very tricky, even for us to know, because people just say you need to have empathy to become good product manager. Yeah, so everybody knows that answer, but nobody tells you how to build it. Can somebody tell me how to cultivate empathy and how to have that empathy in everything that I do? No, because for empathy, you need to build that emotional intelligence. You need to understand how to deal with person. Every person is different. All of us, 30, 40 or 50, 55 of us, everybody is this different. You need to build this emotional intelligence by not just understanding what others is thinking. You also need to be very clear in terms of how can you get what you need from the customer. And that's why they say it's not about always the big data when you build your product. It's also about small data, which is all about how your customers behave. How do they react? Do they get frustrated? What small cues and expressions you can catch whenever they use your product, all about customer psychology. So yes, so these things obviously no AI tool can replace. However, what it can do is, which is obviously will help is anything that you do that doesn't create lot of incremental value will be automated eventually, whether it's AI, whether it's something else, whether you'll get an assistant, whatever, right? So anything that you do which doesn't add incremental value after a point will be repeated or will be replaced. And that's what AI is going to do, which is a good thing. Because as a product manager, I want to spend more time in doing discovery, talking to customers, understanding their pain points, then understanding how am I going to create value for them, than just doing copy paste from 10 different tools, right? That part AI can do. So now I can have my interview notes, I can have my market research from another spreadsheet or maybe some other tool. I can collate everything, give it to any AI tool, and it can just capture, extract, collate everything. Fine, because that's not the fun part. Fun part is talking to customers. Similarly, when you have your product ready, AI can obviously help you in terms of what you should highlight in your sales document, in your pitch document, or wherever. But what your customers need, customer psychology, that you only understand. You understand what they value the most. So you will draft that messaging, positioning, value proposition, and then AI can help you in drafting, making it more structured, which is fine. Because again, as I said, that's not really the fun part. So I feel AI will definitely replace certain pieces which are not so fun, in my opinion, which are repetitive tasks, which can be automated. But product management, at least we are all safe. We are in good space where it cannot be automated or replaced ever. That's what my opinion
Thank you
is.
very much. I thought my job was in danger. Anyways, I don't want to take more time because I want to give time to the audience also. So, Janta, you can raise your hands. We do have some questions in Slido. So, I'm going to pick some people from there also, right?
Mhm.
So, I see a very good question by Pavel. Is Pavel in the call? Right? Is Pavel in the call by any chance? Oh, if he's not there, I'll give that.
Yes,
So,
I am. Yes, I
yeah,
am. I'm figuring
awesome.
out
Yeah.
the question
Pavel,
first.
can you just quickly show your face? And I will just reiterate the question from Pavel's side. I think
Sure.
what Pavel has asked, and he will elaborate on the question. He says that how do you maintain transparency and alignment across different team members and maybe different teams? And what challenges do you face in managing conflicts across different priorities and different teams? And Pavel, happy to elaborate. Please go for it. Yes.
Yeah.
One
So, I
question,
mean,
one question just
yeah,
before this starts. Only one
yeah,
question will be allowed. People who have not given it in Slido, I will give them later opportunities, but you can raise your hands and slowly and steadily. Only one question is allowed per person. Pavel, please, over to you. Go
yeah.
for it.
So my question is, when you handle B2B products, right? I mean, there will be lot many different stakeholders in different layers, and to have a decision made, and also with the changes happening quite often, with the disruption happening around the market, it's pretty critical to have everyone aligned and also keeping things transparent. And when things get missed out there, often there will be some kind of conflicts that will be raised, of course, I mean, right? So what are the challenges as a business leader you face, and what are some things you do to tackle it?
Sure, sure. Great question, Pavel, because uh, that's what I do a lot. I remember asking one of my senior leaders and mentors that, oh, now because when I lead a team now, I don't really do that core work a lot. Most of the times, I'm just talking to stakeholders and trying to share what is working, what is not working. And he told me something which is very interesting. He said, as you grow and you become, let's say, a leader or you start managing a team, one of the core aspect of your role is firefighting. You will have to do firefighting. You will have to do firefighting a lot because that is one part of your role as a leader. So yes, I do that firefighting a lot, and it's all about managing your stakeholders when things are not going well, or even let's say when things are going well. So what I do is when things are not going, let's say, well, or maybe things are not really working. So what we do is generally, obviously, one area is you have to have focus on communication. You have to communicate, and it's okay to over communicate, especially when you are finding challenges, you are finding issues, and things are not going well, or you feel there is no proper alignment between different stakeholders that you have. Now, these stakeholders can be external customers, these stakeholders can be internal parties as well. So, one is you have to start with very clear communication. In your communication, make sure that you are clearly calling out the why before getting into the what. Because when everybody understands the overall objective, business impact, it's easy for you to bring them together, even if, let's say, they have completely different opinions on the idea, solution, so on and so forth. So one is you have to communicate, over communicate to manage your stakeholders. It's absolutely fine. And then you have to be very clear on the why before you get into the what part. So that is one thing to manage your stakeholders. Second is whenever you have, let's say, a couple of different parties and everybody has their own set of priorities, and let's say it's not really, uh, they are not on the same page. What you should do is you should always find a common forum where you can hear them out, both of them or all these parties together, and then let them really share what they feel or what they have concerns about your idea or solutions. So that's another thing where what we do is we always have something called customer advisory board. We have different customers, different industry mix, different scale, different geography, and we have all these customer advisory board members who come together. We talk about things which are working, we talk about things which are not working. These are mainly voice of customer kind of forums as well, where they say, hey, we don't like about this offering, or we don't like this offer or this solution. So second is you need to give them a forum where they can come and they can talk about things regularly. So it should not be just one time opportunity. So if you give them sufficient forum and time, and if you give them enough attention, then also you can reduce some of the friction, some of the challenges with managing different or difficult stakeholders. And then in general, what you can do is you have to collaborate. You have to collaborate with everybody. You have to work with them very well. So for managing any stakeholder, irrespective of any situation, remember these three C's, right? So one is communication. Focus on clear communication, talk about why and then what. Second is have that clarity. Ensure everybody is on the same page with clear goals, transparent processes, etc. And third is collaborate. Collaborate with them, involve everybody, make them as part of the decisioning process. Decision will be yours finally, but at least let them share what they feel. So if you follow all of this, you can manage any situation, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Very cool. So next I'll bring
Thank you very
Vivek.
much.
I'll just bring Vivek has a very nice question and I personally liked it. Vivek, I'm bringing you into the spotlight. So I'll just repeat the question for everybody. So Vivek is asking, how do you set the right expectations with your engineering team? If you're doing everything right, sometimes it feels that the PM is burdensome because of the pressures of business team that, no, we have to ship it by this date, no matter what. How do you manage that expectation? Because ideally, the goal of a PM should be to make the life of the engineers easy in some capacity by structure and clarity of thought. How do you do that? But Vivek, please introduce yourself and go for it. Yes.
Oh, hi, Sushant, Vivek here. So I also take care of a B2B SaaS platform. So I can relate to it, whatever you mentioned, like very valid points. First of all, thanks for your valuable insights, really helpful. Particularly your area of concern, area of influence. That actually was something which was like, yeah, eureka moment for me. Yeah. And then like how exactly do you navigate with the engineering team? Like that is sometimes a hassle with all the timelines and that they are biggest stakeholders, if I can put it this way. So, and you have to work very closely with them. You have sometimes there are some changes in scope which influence the time to release something, and they are like, no, we have to stick to the timeline because we have to. The engineering has the some they have to report to the senior authorities as well. So that is where it becomes kind of tricky to have that be on the good books of the engineering as well because you have to maintain that relationship. So it becomes a tricky path at times, like how exactly you navigate that path. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your inputs on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sure. A great question, very relevant, and it's applicable everywhere. So what is probably the best way of dealing with these kind of scenarios? Because sometimes as a product manager, or not sometimes, most of the times, you won't really have people reporting into you. Is people at least outside the product team, but you are supposed to influence technically their every decision. You are supposed to tell them what they should do or what they should not do, but you don't really have that typical authority. So how will you do it? And then there is a process that I generally tend to follow a lot. Is first is you really have to have them as part of the process. Never ever estimate if somebody is not part of product team, will not understand those customers pain point, or will not have good ideas. So one is have them as part of your team in literal sense. What we do is we make sure that engineering leaders or engineering resources are at least part of some of our customer meetings, some of our customer discovery sessions, some of our general discussions with sales and account team to get that real feedback. Because then if they are with you on that call, and if they are hearing that 10 customers complaining about the same thing, now they'll start working with you closely, because then it's not just Vivek's or Sushant's problem, then it is their problem. So that is my second point. Give them more responsibility, right? Give them more responsibility, and even if they fail, it's fine. You say it's okay. So you are giving them exposure, you are giving them responsibility, and giving them this cushion as well. Once you start doing all of this very regularly, they'll start considering you as part of the group, as part of the same team. Third, and probably which is where you also need to apply some of that core product management principle, empathy. You also need to empathize with your engineering teams, because yes, they want to deliver that next cool feature, but there are some tech mandates as well. There will be some infrastructure upgrades that you will have to do. And that's where, as a product manager, you also need to empathize to understand, okay, fine, I don't like this JDK upgrade, or I don't like this general infrastructure upgrade, but tell me what is in for me. You tell me what is in for me and my product. Yes, maybe my product will become more secure, which you obviously want. Maybe my product will become faster in terms of improvement, or maybe it will have better logging, which will help my team to troubleshoot those issues faster. Once you start understanding their side, and once you start having them as part of your conversation, then only you become like that jodi, which can perform together as a group. So have them as part of your thought process, be part of their thinking, their brainstorming, and then you can really build that winning combination.
I think one more point I would want to add, while Sushant said very meaningful points, a lot of times empathy stems from action. So what I mean by
Yes.
that is empathy does not always mean, oh, I hear you. That's not the point. Empathy also comes to the fact that if somebody is saying this is a complex API that we have to build across, you go back and actually learn what is the complexity about,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
At least from a structure point of view. So the next time you have that discussion with the engineer feels, oh yaar, sach mein, ye mehnat karke aaya hai. Matlab he's not just saying it active, just shallow point of view. No, this doesn't make sense. That person has done his discovery, and that shows a lot of value to the work that the other person is doing. And I think that also helps. But very cool question. The next thing that I want to do is I want to bring Hilda. Hilda, I'm adding you to the spotlight. I just want to rephrase her question. And I think it's a very meaningful question that everybody asks. There are a lot of roles like this business analyst, product owner, right? And a lot of times people ask, what is the difference between these two, right? Because in a large organization, maybe a Sabre, there would be a product manager also, and there would be a product owner also, right? And ye difference kya hai? Because a lot of product owners come to me and they say, we don't do product management work, right? What do they expect from it? And Hilda, please, happy to elaborate. Please give your introduction. And Janta, for rest of you, please raise hands. Once the Slido questions are done, I'll start pulling up people. So you prepare your questions. That's for it. Hilda, please, over to you. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Sushant. So I'm Hilda. I've been working as a product manager, and earlier I also have worked in a B2B product, which is mainly built for internal company purposes, while also buying other off-the-shelf products as well. So essentially in big companies, you have a lot of hierarchies of roles. You have business analysts, you have product owners, you have product managers. So how does these roles differentiate themselves, and how does people grow into each role as well if they want to have a lateral shift?
Sure. Yes. So if I just have to explain what these different roles are, maybe so if you think about anything in general that we do for our customers is a kind of product management deliverable. Anything that you do which is going to positively impact your customer's life, uh, it's nothing but product management. But so this is general definition of product management. You are building something for somebody who can use it and then they'll get some benefits, monetary, physical, whatever, right? Now, to accomplish or to reach that outcome, you need to perform a lot of different things. One is obviously you need to understand, as I was saying, especially in B2B, you need to understand the processes. You need to understand what they are currently using. How do they use it? So that you can make it better for them, for your customers. So business analysis is all about understanding all those different pieces in the puzzle, documenting them, capturing all those use cases, using UMLs and other diagrams so that you can clearly say, hey, this is the current state. These are different systems. These are different processes. That's how these data moves from one place to another place. This is that meaning of that transaction, which will have some value. So you are doing that analysis, which you will do anyhow, irrespective of whether you are product owner, product manager, maybe in some different form, some different shape. But business analysts are supposed to do this: capture the current state in detail and document the future state again in detail. But more or less, business analysis stops there. You understand it, what your needs are, and then you document and capture it. Product owner is where you have more of that execution piece, where now you have that thing, let's say whatever business analysts do, you have that understanding of system. Now you own that build and delivery phase. You make sure you are helping your teams to deliver what is expected as part of your future state. That is product owner. So as a product owner, I'll make sure I build, I deliver, and then I have this feedback loop to iteratively improve it. Stop. In product management, obviously companies expect you to do much more beyond simple build and simple delivery. There you need to also understand, once I build it, what is my long-term vision? How will I reach to that vision? How can I grow my customer base? How can I gain more share from my existing customers? Who my customers are? What kind of changes I foresee in next 2 years, 3 years, so that I am ready. So now you are doing a lot of stuff asides or besides of building, delivering, and then making sure a customer is using it. You are kind of now painting completely a new picture on a canvas. That's what product management is all about when we say in general in companies. So everything is important. You need some form of business analysis, you need some form of product ownership, and obviously some form of product management to build a product, grow a product, scale it, and take it to the next level. So yes, your deliverables will differ, but core fundamental objective remains the same.
Makes sense. I think one more thing from a structural point of view, which I completely agree here. There are these three aspects: product, solution, and the execution part of it, right? The business analysts focus a lot on the process execution part of it, right? The solution and the execution kind of comes into the second bracket. And when you take care of discovery also, you become the full-fledged product manager that you want to talk about. What is the problem? Why am I solving it? Who am I solving it for? What will it do in the future? So it is that overarching encompassing role in which there are sub roles which typically exist across. I hope that helps. Okay, cool. I'll move forward. I'll quickly move to Tanishk. Tanishk has asked a very good question, and I think this is the question that I also wanted to ask. So I'll just bring him into the top spotlight. He's one of the young members in the group, very enthusiastic, right? So this is a question where he asks, how do you essentially not navigate or navigate product failures, which have been done by extensive amount of discovery, extensive amount of research has gone into it, और उसके बाद भी fail हो गया. Like for example, Google has launched so many products like Google Plus, right? They spent billions and billions on it, and eventually it didn't work, right? So how does that happen, and how do you navigate those ships, and how do you even figure that out, that this is something that probably after so much research is going to just fell flat on my face and not work? Yeah. And Tanish, please, over to you. You kind of introduce yourself And please elaborate on the question if I said something wrong. Yeah, please go for it.
Hi, Sushant. Myself, Tanis Prasanna. I recently did a product internship in a CPaaS company and currently in my third year pursuing bachelor's in computer science. So I just want to know from your personal experience as well. So, for example, imagine like if you are working in some products and you have done extensive work, extensive discovery, and you have figured out everything. Also, in the process, it is showing that it has a positive outcome, and everything that you have predicted has a high chance of being executed and give you the final result. But at the end, you did not receive the actual outcome. So, what was your thought process in that scenario? Like, you would be thinking like, is there any misconception in the process that you have missed any uh, important discovery part, or you're just thinking that there might be it is something which is not avoidable, that the final outcome is not in our control, or you would think about like what were the things which I would have executed to avoid that. So I would like to know in depth like what how you will deal with that.
Sure, sure. Perfect. And you have very nice setup. For a minute, I thought I'm talking to a podcaster with this cool mic and fancy background.
He's the coolest one in the group. So, Sushant, I'm telling
Yeah.
you, I learn so
Mhm.
much from him. Whenever he comes with some kind of reminder, what am I doing? Like, I need to become better. But yeah, over to you,
Yeah,
please.
perfect. Yeah, so great question, Tanish, because as you correctly said, no matter how much research you do, no matter how many times you go and talk to customers, no matter how cool your tech is, there will be products which will fail. And your chances of failures will be obviously more compared to your chances of getting successful, which is absolutely fine as far as those product launches, product features are concerned. What differentiates a good product manager and a great product manager is how can you minimize the impact of those failures. If you are able to do it successfully, then you are really a great product manager, because that's what you are supposed to do. As product managers, you are not just supposed to build, deliver, and launch things. You are also supposed to consider what if something goes wrong? How can I identify those unknown unknowns, which again, my favorite words, unknown unknowns, as early as possible. Now, how will you discover those unknown unknowns? By doing planning, fine. By doing research, great. But also making sure you are always looking ahead. You are always one step ahead in terms of how your customers are going to react, how markets will change. Sometimes markets can change completely. Sometimes you are not even ready for it. And I'll give one very interesting example, because we are using Zoom, right? Imagine it's 2018, 2019. You are product manager for Zoom. Your life is cool. You have built something which people use, but it's fine. Everything is going well. Suddenly you have pandemic. People have started using, and now you are seeing failure because one, your product was never built considering this much volume. And now you have complete different personas using your same product. You never expected in 2018 that teachers will use it. You never expected in 2018 that non-corporates will use it. You never expected that your family will use it to play Antakshri or all of this, right? So who expected all of this? No, right? So these are also failure, because as a product manager, you never design a product that was meeting the diverse need of all your customers. What can you do in such cases? In such cases, you have to anticipate and you have to see how can I build those different use cases for my product. That's what will be your differentiator. Read a lot. Try to think about different things, get inspiration from different industries. That will help you in thinking about if something goes wrong. Maybe sometimes things can go wrong. For example, in Zoom case, things went wrong for something good, right? So that can also happen. So always stay ahead of a curve, read, research, get inspiration from different industry, go get out of the building, as Steve Blank says, get out of the building, find and figure out more things. But yes, you have to minimize the impact, whether it's positive or negative, so that you can plan better.
Makes sense. Such a nice thing to say. Next, I'm bringing Astha, and Astha has been a product manager, and she's still a product manager. I want to ask, and she has a very nice question, and I just want to reiterate that. She says that how do you foster a culture of innovation, introducing new tech within B2B product teams? Because a lot of times B2B product teams use legacy tech, and it is worked across like large systems of 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people. Like if you tell today IBM to move from mainframes to start using AI and high quality compute, it's not going to happen overnight. So how do you build that culture? And I remember this one anecdote, and again, then I'll let Astha to kind of speak about it. I remember when my mom moved in State Bank to core banking. Now I remember it took them years to get used to it and get that done. How do you do that at scale, and how do you, and Astha, please introduce yourself and please ask the question. Yes.
Yeah, hi Sushant, Asta here. I have 6.5 years of experience till now, and right now I'm again working on B2B product, and it's a legacy product, anyways. So usually we have that legacy products in telecom or banking sectors where the large enterprise customers on there, and you have really very difficult time to make them understand or push forward new tech, or to make their life easier, but they have some restrictions and constraint in their mindset. So how do you tackle with situations?
Sure. Yes, great question. And I know all these tools that you're talking about, all those mainframe, TPFs and other things, I know. But the reason why we still have these things and a lot of large corporates are still using, because if you talk about IBM's mainframe, probably some of the largest and biggest companies in the world, they are still using mainframe. And the reason is because these things are getting the work done. So as a large corporate, my focus is on getting the things done than something else. And that's where, as product managers, what we can do is we have to build this idea, or we have to build this culture where we are trying to innovate, but then you also need to innovate given all these constraints in mind. So for example, if a company is using mainframe, I can't just go and just tell them that, hey, let's move off mainframe, let's build everything using latest tech stack, deploy in Google, use GKE and all those latest analytics dashboards and other things, which is great on a piece of paper. But what is the value? So first thing, what we need to do is innovate and see how can you innovate given all these constraints. Because if you try to change everything, you will get frustrated. So you should define that context and boundary around your innovation. I'm sure within whatever is the legacy that you feel, you can still innovate, you can still come up with some good ideas. That is one thing. And second is, even if you feel that there are certain things which are not changing, or there are certain things which you feel can definitely change, you need to start thinking about same product management principles. How will you message your product offering? How will you offer value proposition of your idea to your stakeholders? So your customers are your stakeholders. So same product management principles. Once you build your idea, who is going to use it? Can you also come up with that idea's life cycle? So just apply exactly the same product management principles with your ideas and see if you can propose everything as if you are building a new product. Have you done your enough discovery? Have you validated what if something goes wrong? What are your risks and dependencies? So assume you are working on a product case and then see where your idea fits in the overall ecosystem, because you can't change anything and everything. So that is one. Second, what we generally do is we know whatever ideas you have, let's assume 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 will really be executed, because every large corporate, you have so many priorities, but still for that one idea, you can't just tell your teams, hey, stop thinking or stop coming up with new ideas. Chances of getting that idea successfully implemented is somewhat less, but you should still encourage. As I said, do your research, pitch your ideas. In our team, we have this Shark Tank kind of initiative where we just meet internally and we just discuss and kind of brainstorm ideas that everybody has. We know not every idea will be implemented, but still you need to have that forum where you can have your creative juices flowing and you can discuss it. And then once you like that idea, can you just, again, as I said in the beginning, can you just create quick business case? Can you create your own way of how much will it cost? What value it will add? What will be the ROI for it? And how can you really execute it. So if you can really follow all these principles, you can definitely try to change the things, but don't try to change everything. Look for incremental innovation opportunities, and then only you can build that culture. So I know not very clear answer, because it's not really easy to change everything, but you can still continue and you can still have that environment where you can innovate and come up with new things.
Makes sense. I will only take 2 more questions in the interest of time. So I'm bringing Mamta now. Abhishek, I would not be able to take your questions. People who have questions, you can drop me a DM. I'll pass it on to Sushant in the interest of time. So Mamta, I'm just bringing you in. Mamta, please introduce yourself and go for it. Yes.
Hi Sushant, I'm Mamta.
Okay.
I did have the opportunity to work as an APM for a B2B product in a startup. So I want to know something that I had experience. You did mention about the speed of execution when you are in a B2B setup, right? But then when you are entering a B2B, a new domain as well for that matter, how do you inculcate that fastness? Because it takes time for you to understand the business itself. It takes for you to understand the whole process itself. How do you create that fastness? And then we do know that the failure margin is a little lower. How do you do it even correctly? Because you doing something new will you are bound to do more mistakes in that sense, right? So how do you inculcate that part?
Yes, great question, Mamta. So what you should do is never try to do everything on your own. Have this diverse perspective. Try to see if others can also pitch in and others can also help you. Let's say if you have new ideas. So for example, in typical enterprise B2B setting, you have a lot of sales account directors who really talk to customers day in and day out.
Yeah.
You have help desk who can be your great friends in terms of telling you what doesn't work. So you go and talk to them. You go and try to get some inspiration from them based on what they are hearing from the customers. Try to leverage this collective brain power, then try to do everything on your own. It can really help you. Because of, as you said, you can't learn everything on your own, but you have other people who can definitely help, and nobody says no in general if you are really clear in terms of how it is going to help you and them and your company, right? So you also have to say that I'm trying to understand this so that we can do it better, and that's how it's going to help you, us, and collectively everybody. So just always go with that mindset. Try to leverage others' brain power, others' expertise, because that's what you need. In Sabre, just as an example, I know people who are with Sabre for 40 years, 40. I can't learn that level of domain expertise ever. It will take me, I don't know, a few more decades. So I don't need to learn what they know. If they already know what I need, how can I partner well with them? And that's why you have to work on your interpersonal skills. How can you build rapport with your stakeholders? How can you really break the ice so that they are with you than against you? So that's why I say, think that art of storytelling is very important, right? Join Toastmasters, work on your communication skills, network with your friends so that you can become the person with whom everybody wants to interact. And then you can also leverage them to build something which is much more cool, typical in B2B kind of setting.
Sure. Thank you.
As my first manager used to say, it's not about what you've got, it's what you make of what you've got. So
True.
that's so true. Makes sense. Ritvik, I'm bringing you in. Ritvik, can you please showcase your face? That's the last question I'm taking. Ritvik, are you there?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Ritvik,
Hello.
please introduce yourself and go for it. Yes.
Hello, my name is Ritvik and I have around 5 years of experience working as a product manager. So I have the 2 questions. Like first you said like in B2B, we need to understand the domain expertise, right? So my question is like whether you have some specific clients in the place like who is demanding for a specific solutions, right? But you can't change for like you cannot build for a specific customer or a specific set of person, and then how you handle this type of situations. And that to client is very big for you in terms of revenue.
Yes.
One question. This is the only question I'm allowing to ask. There cannot be a second question. So this is the one question. Make sure this is the question that you want to ask, or you want to switch to the other one. If this is the question, go for it, please. Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, great question, Ritvik. And this always happens. It can even happen in B2C also. For example, you want to help your power users, right? So now in B2C, you have power users. In B2B, probably you have your biggest client, or you have client which makes the loudest noise, right? But what you do is, right, as a product manager, you are right. You are building products, you are building platforms, you're not building those custom solutions, white label kind of offerings for your customers. So what you should do is, if let's say your largest customer or biggest customer is asking for something, you don't need to take everything as is, because then you are also not adding a lot of value. As a product manager, try to understand what they need, why they need. That is important. And then see, can the same use case will work for some other customers? Because if you have built a product for a specific industry, specific domain, if one customer is asking for it, I'm sure others will have that need. Maybe that need is not big enough for them yet, right? So that's the key thing. So what you should do is, as product manager, understand what your customer is asking, do your internal brainstorming, plot that requirement that ask in your overall customer journey map, and see if that problem is genuine enough and big enough for other customers, because you never know. Other will also start asking for the same thing in 3 months, 6 months down the line. Talk to them. That's where having those advisory board meetings really help. Do this survey. And as I was telling earlier, talk to your sales, talk to your account director, talk to your help desk and other stakeholders to see, hey, what do you think about these kind of solutions or this kind of requirement? If you get validation from other parties, other customers as well, you know you're not building something custom for that customer. Then you can think about, how can I make it generic? How can I make it as part of my platform? Assume worst case, you build something which nobody is asking at this point in time. Sometimes you have to build it. That is the reality. Even if you build it, your job as a product manager is, how can I better sell it? How can I better tweak it so that it will work for others as well? So be prepared for everything, including the worst case, but do your research first so that you know that it's not just one customer, it's others as well who will need it at some point in time. If not, identify the use case and continue to improve.
Makes sense. Very
Yeah.
cool. So, Sushant, I have one last question before we
Sure.
pass out and take our seminal photograph,
Sure.
right? How do you get this clarity of thought that you have in general? I really admire the fact you were so calm in telling across all of the things. How do you generally build clarity of thought? I would just want to ask that. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, nobody asked me this before, but yes, except Mayank. I saw him, but I don't see him now. But yes, so first thing is, for anything in life, if you want clarity, and I'm glad that you are saying that I have that clarity, that you have to brush up your skills. You have to really learn, and you can only learn when you read. In my opinion, you read a lot, read anything, but read as much as you can, because when you read, then only you think. If I watch, I won't think, right? If I read an article, probably my thinking will be less because I'm in front of something which is digital. So read as much as you can. I love reading. I always make sure that at least I'm reading 1 page a day, and read about diverse topic. That's second thing. I'm passionate about one thing, great, I'll read about it. But second is, you need to have that diverse perspective by understanding different domains. So you go and read anything that you feel is relevant somehow, whether it belongs to different industry, different domain. And then third is, which is very important, that you have to practice what you know. You have to share what you know. And I really love talking, and I talk to a lot of people. So once you read, you have material here. Once you have diverse perspective, you can now think beyond what you know. And then you also need some platforms where you can talk, interact, and share your knowledge. And then it becomes part of your routine. So I think that's what I would say.
I'm glad you found this platform to share your knowledge.
Absolutely.
That's so
Yeah.
lovely. So, in the interest of Janta, I would want to show your faces again.
Mhm.
Please, the most
Sure.
ugly person is here, right? तो आप सब अपने चेहरे दिखा सकते हो. इसमें कोई बुरी बात नहीं है. Unless and until you are sitting at the toilet or somebody. Other than that, you can show your faces. ठीक है?
Sure.
At the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, everybody has to do this. 1, 2, 3, cheese. बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत अमेजिंग. अच्छा, 2 more things, जनता. Please, I want feedback on Slack. I'll put the message now. I want everybody to tell me what you could take away, because for every product leader, it is important that Sushant also takes away what what you liked about it, what you disliked about it, and be as candid as possible. And if there are any questions that you feel that you couldn't ask, please DM them to me. I'll forward it to Sushant, and whenever he gets time, he'll respond back. Or LinkedIn पे तो आप बात कर ही सकते हो. You can always reach out to him on LinkedIn. Once again, Sushant, this means so much. I
Thank you.
thoroughly loved the conversation. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that I validate my hypothesis when people like you come in. Right? So मेरे लिए ये बहुत important होता है कि मैं कुछ random तो नहीं पढ़ा रहा इनको. सही बात ही तो पढ़ा रहा हूँ ना. So that is what I do. But thank you very much. I think this is the calling that pretty much everybody would say that they would want you back again. ठीक है? तो जनता, please feedback. This is super important. Show gratitude to the guest. और एक और चीज. Once I put the फोटो, 2-3 हजार फॉलोवर बढ़ाओ यार, क्या कर रहे हो, लिखते नहीं हो आप. 2-3 हजार फॉलोवर तो बढ़ने चाहिए, इतनी मेहनत की है. राइट? मेक सेंस? चलो, गॉड ब्लेस यू. बाय बाय, टेक केयर.
Thanks everyone. Thanks. Bye bye.